Good morning. Today is day 72 of reading through the Bible in 102 days. Welcome to today's reading. This is going to be a good, interesting reading for sure. We're in the book of Ezekiel right now, and today we're reading Ezekiel chapters 36 to 47. So it's been a really jam-packed, intense book so far, and there is more for us to see. That intensity is gonna keep going. This is this is gonna be a good reading this morning. If this is your first time seeing this, welcome. Sorry about that. But if this is your first time seeing this, welcome. It's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, it's reading through the whole Bible in a span of 102 days total, and what we're doing is we're taking this scripture in large chunks so that we can understand the bigger picture, meta-narrative view of the Bible better. And so it's been really good, really something that I've grown through a lot so far. And there's still so much left to go through and so much more to learn and grow. And if you've been here the whole time, or if you've been here for a chunk of time, welcome as always, and I hope that today this reading is going to be a blessing to you and to me, that we would grow together this morning as we read the Word of God. This here is like a visual of where we're at. So right here, this is where we're at in Ezekiel. So this a colored in version. I read live from 7 a.m. to about 8:30 a.m. on Mondays to Fridays, and then Saturdays at 10 a.m. to get the opportunity to read with someone else. And this is, it's really, really cool. I'm really, really enjoying getting to read the Word this quickly, because it's such a fast, such an aggressive pace that I was worried about not getting much, not being able to retain much. But it's like what you do retain is a lot more, like the bigger picture of things. You do notice more trends across chapters, across books, and like things that are more common themes across a certain segment of biblical history or whatever else it may be. And I find that really, really interesting. And I'm someone who naturally tends to get really into all the little details, and I love that, and I find that super fascinating. But sometimes there's also a time and place for just seeing the big picture as well. And like I said, this challenge has been really helping me grow a lot, helping me learn a lot, but ultimately, just helping me grow closer to our Savior, and that's what's most important. So the scriptures quoted are from the NET Bible, https://netbible.com, copyright 1996-2019, used with permission from Biblical Studies Press, LLC, all rights reserved. So let's pray, and then let's start reading. God Almighty, we thank you that we get to come before you. We thank you that we get to read your word. God, you have given us your word to help us know you, to guide us to you, to just reveal your character to us. Lord, thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for how it all points to you. Thank you that it's all about you. It's all for you. And I thank you that we get to, just read it this morning, God. I pray that you would speak to us through your word today. Lord, thank you that you're here with us as we read. We don't just read empty, blank words that have no life to them, but we read these words that are of you. And as the disciples said, that you alone have the words of life, Lord. We thank you that we get to read your words. Lord, I pray that our minds, our hearts would be attentive to you today. Thank you for this book of Ezekiel that we're going through right now. Speak to us, Lord. I pray in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, let's get into the reading, starting at 36. As for you, Son of man, prophesy to the mountains of Israel and say, O mountains of Israel, listen to the Lord's message. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The enemy has spoken against you, saying, Aha! And the ancient heights have become our property. So prophesy and say, This is what the sovereign Lord says. Surely because they have made you desolate and crushed you from all directions, so that you have become the property of the rest of the nations, and have become the subject of gossip and slander among the people. Therefore, O mountains of Israel, hear the word of the sovereign Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to the mountains and hills, the ravines and valleys, and to the desolate ruins and the abandoned cities that have become prey and an object to derision to the rest of the nations round about. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Surely I have spoken in the fire of my zeal against the rest of the nations and against all Edom, who with great joy and utter contempt have made my land their property and prey because of its pasture. Therefore prophesy concerning the land of Israel, and say to the mountains and hills, the ravines and valleys, This is what the sovereign Lord says. I have spoken in my zeal and in my anger, because you have endured the insults of the nations. So this is what the sovereign Lord says. I vow that the nations around you will endure insults as well. But you, mountains of Israel, will grow your branches and bear your fruit for my people Israel, for they will arrive soon. For indeed, I am on your side. I will turn to you, and you will be plowed and planted. I will multiply your people, the whole house of Israel, all of it. The cities will be populated, and the ruins rebuilt. I will increase the number of people and animals on you. They will increase and be fruitful. I will cause you to be inhabited as in ancient times, and will do more good for you than at the beginning of your history. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I will lead people, my people Israel, across you. They will possess you, and you will become their inheritance. No longer will you bereave them of their children. This is what the sovereign Lord says, because they are saying to you, You are a devourer of men, and bereave your nation of children. Listen, you will no longer devour people, and no longer bereave your nation of children, declares the sovereign Lord. I will no longer subject you to the nation's insults. No longer will you bear the shame of the peoples, and no longer will you bereave your nation, declares the sovereign Lord. The Lord's message came to me. Son of man, when the house of Israel was living on their own land, they defiled it by their behavior and their deeds in my sight. Their behavior was like the uncleanness of a woman having her monthly period. So I poured my anger on them because of the blood they shed on the land and because of the idols with which they defiled it. I scattered them among the nations. They were dispersed throughout foreign countries. In accordance with their behavior and their deeds, I judged them. But when they arrived in the nations where they went, they profaned my holy name. It was said of them, These are the people of the Lord, yet they have departed from his land. I was concerned for my holy reputation, which the house of Israel profaned among the nations where they went. Therefore, say to the house of Israel, This is what the sovereign Lord says. It is not for your sake that I am about to act, O house of Israel, but the sake of my holy reputation, which you profaned among the nations where you went. I will magnify my great name that has been profaned among the nations, which you have profaned among them. The nations will know that I am the Lord, declares the sovereign Lord, when I magnify myself among you in their sight. I will take you from the nations and gather you from the corners from all the countries. Then I will bring you to your land. I will sprinkle you with pure water, and you will be clean from all your impurities. I will purify you from all your idols. I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit within you. I will remove the heart of stone from your body and give you a heart of flesh. I will put my spirit within you. I will take the initiative, and you will obey my statutes and carefully observe my regulations. Then you will live in the land that I gave to your fathers. You will be my people, and I will be your God. I will save you from all your uncleanness. I will call for the grain and multiply it. I will not bring a famine on you. I will multiply the fruit of the trees and the produce of the fields, so that you will never again suffer the disgrace of famine among the nations. Then you will remember your evil behavior and your deeds that were not good. You will loathe yourselves on account of your sins and your abominable deeds. Understand that it is not for your sake that I am about to act, declares the sovereign Lord. Be ashamed and be embarrassed by your behavior, O house of Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says. In the day I cleanse you from all your sins. I will populate the cities, and the ruins will be rebuilt. The desolate land will be plowed. Instead of being desolate in the sight of everyone who passes by, they will say, this desolate land has become like the Garden of Eden. The ruined, desolate, and destroyed cities are now fortified and inhabited. Then the nations that remain around you will know that I am the Lord, that I, the Lord, have rebuilt the ruins, and replanted what was desolate. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will do it. This is what the sovereign Lord says. I will allow the house of Israel to ask me to do this for them. I will multiply their people like sheep, like the sheep for offerings, like the sheep of Jerusalem during her appointed feasts. So the ruined cities will be filled with flocks of people. Then they will know that I am the Lord. This is an interesting chapter. I'd like to take some notes on it. The page was working just before. Now it looks like it's blank. Let's refresh it, see what happens. I may have to use my phone. Oh, yeah. I'm not sure why Chrome has been very not worky today. It's, well, no, I don't want to exit both pages. It's asking me if I want to exit these pages because they're not responding, which I can see that. Oh, no. Now all of Chrome is not responding. Okay. All right. I've got Chrome working. Let's see. I can probably take notes on my phone. If you're interested in the notes that I'll be taking as I'm taking them, they're in the notes document down below. If there's anything at any point, like as we're reading, that you notice that you think would add to the discussion or that you want to take note of in any way, that would be of blessing to everyone else. And yeah, just let us know. You can mention it in the comments. You can mention it in the collaborative notes document. You can mention it in the chat, wherever you want. But yeah, it'd be great. I love the dialogues that we get to have over these different passages, and it's a very beneficial thing to us. It very much so blesses me to read your comments, to read what you guys are noticing. So let me know. But now I'm going to take a few notes here on my phone today. Let's Let's see. Okay, okay. Also, there was just a lot in this chapter. There were, okay. The people, while in exile, have profaned the Lord's reputation, but God will still bring them back to the land, not for their sake, but for the sake of his own name, which they profaned. It will be compared to Eden with restored lushness. The Lord has spoken, and he will do it. Comma, he will bring his people back out of grace. They profaned. Even though they profaned his name. All right, Ezekiel 37. Oh boy. Oh boy. Google Chrome. I may have to resort to just reading off my phone today. And that's yeah, I mean, I guess that's all right if that's what we got to do, because these pages are really not loading today. This is really odd. Like, all the tabs that I like usually have to, let's see. Yeah, like this is supposed to be the coloring tab. This is the reading schedule. This is the plan. This is my notes, collaborative notes, Bible. And okay. All right, it's not working. That's all right. Let's switch over. Can I add an extra tab to this? No? Okay. Let's pull it up on my iPad right here. Oh, wait, hold on. Ezekiel 37. Never mind. Spoke too soon. Okay. Let's screen share 2. Here we go. The Valley of Dry Bones. Okay, this is like one of, if not the best known passage in the book of Ezekiel, or at least chapter. Okay. Here we go. The hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and placed me in the midst of the valley, and it was full of bones. He made me walk all around among them. I realized there were a great many bones in the valley, and they were very dry. He said to me, "Son of man, can these bones live?" I said to him, "Sovereign Lord, you know." Then he said to me, "Prophesy over these bones and tell them, dry bones, listen to the Lord's message. This is what the Sovereign Lord says to these bones. Look, I am about to infuse breath into you, and you will live. I will put tendons on you and muscles over you, and will cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will live. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied, and it was as I was commanded. There was a sound when I prophesied. I heard a rattling, and the bones came together, bone to bone. As I watched, I saw tendons on them, and then muscles appeared, and skin covered over them from above, but there was no breath in them. He said to me, prophesy to the breath. Prophesy, Son of Man, and say to the breath, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe on these corpses so that they may live. So I prophesied, and as I was commanded, and the breath came into them. They lived and stood on their feet, an extremely great army. Then he said to me, Son of man, these bones are the house of Israel. Look, they are saying, our bones are dry, our hope has perished, we are cut off. Therefore prophesy, and tell them this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am about to open your graves, and will raise you from your graves, my people. I will bring you to the land of Israel. Then you will know that I am the Lord, when I open your graves and raise you from your graves, my people. I will place my breath in you, and you will live. I will give you rest in your own land. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I have spoken, and I will act, declares the Lord. The Lord's message came to me. As for you, Son of man, take one branch and write on it, for Judah and for the Israelites associated with him. Then take another branch and write on it, for Joseph, the branch of Ephraim, and all the house of Israel associated with him. Join them as one stick. They will be as one in your hand. When your people say to you, will you not tell us what these things mean? Tell them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am about to take the branch of Joseph that is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel associated with him, and I will place them on the stick of Judah, and make them into one stick. They will be one in my hand. The sticks you write on will be in your hand in front of them. Then tell them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am about to take the Israelites from among the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from round about and bring them to their land. I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king will rule over them all. They will never again be two nations, and never again be divided into two kingdoms. They will not defile themselves with their idols, their detestable things, and all their rebellious deeds. I will save them from all their unfaithfulness, by which they sinned. I will purify them. They will become my people, and I will become their God. My servant David will be king over them. There will be one shepherd for all of them. They will follow my regulations and carefully observe my statutes. They will live in the land I gave to my servant Jacob, in which your fathers lived. They will live in it. They and their children and their grandchildren forever. David, my servant, will be prince over them forever. I will make a covenant of peace with them. It will be a perpetual covenant with them. I will establish them, increase their numbers, and place my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be with them. I will be their God, and they will be my people. Then, when my sanctuary is among them forever, the nations will know that I, the Lord, sanctify Israel. Whew, that was cool. That's such a cool chapter. All right. Valley of Dry Bones. And the bones come together, and tendons and muscles appear, and then breath comes to them, and they form a great army. No. Okay. I will please. Okay. Then there's the analogy of the two sticks. The two sticks that are joined together and made into one stick. Never again be divided into two kingdoms. There will be one shepherd for all of them, and they will live in the land. This shepherd will be a descendant of David. And God will dwell with them. Yeah, as I was reading, I thought it was interesting how, like the chapter before was when it talks about like a heart of flesh replacing a heart of stone, and then right after that is the chapter where it's the Valley of Dry Bones, which I don't think I'd ever noticed that they were one after the other, and obviously the two sticks being joined as one, and then at the end the Good Shepherd, the prophecy, the messianic prophecy, just so beautiful and so cool, so beautiful to read about. All right, let's keep reading. Chapter 38, prophecy against Gog. The Lord's message came to me, Son of man, turn toward Gog of the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Prophesy against him and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am against you, Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around, put hooks into your jaws, and bring you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them fully armed, a great company with shields of different types, all of them armed with swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Put are with them, all of them with shields and helmets. They are joined by Gomer with all its troops, and by Beth Togarmah from the remote parts of the north with all its troops. Many peoples are with you. Be ready and stay ready, you and all your companies assembled around you, and be a guard for them. After many days, you will be summoned. In the latter years, you will come to a land restored from the ravages of war, from many peoples gathered on the mountains of Israel that had long been in ruins. Its people were brought out from the peoples, and all of them will be living securely. You will advance. You will come like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the earth. You, all your troops, and the many other peoples with you. This is what the sovereign Lord says. On that day, you will say, I will invade a land of unwalled towns. I will advance against those living quietly in security, all of them living without walls and barred gates, to loot and plunder, to attack the inhabited ruins and the people gathered from the nations, who are acquiring cattle and goods, who live at the center of the earth, Sheba and Dedan, and the traders of Tarshish with all its young warriors will say to you, have you come to loot? Have you assembled your armies to plunder? to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to haul away great amount of spoils? Therefore, prophesy, son of man, and say to Gog, this is what the sovereign Lord says. On that day when my people Israel are living securely, you will take notice and come from your place, from the remote parts of the north, you and many peoples with you, all of them riding on horses, a great company and a vast army. You will advance against my people Israel like a cloud covering the earth. In future days I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may acknowledge me. When before their eyes I magnify myself through you, O Gog. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Are you the one of whom I spoke in former days by my servants, the prophets of Israel, who prophesied in those days that I would bring you against them? On that day, when Gog invades the land of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord, my rage will mount up in my anger. In my zeal, the fire of my fury, I declare that on that day there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the wild beasts, all the things that creep on the ground, and all the people who live on the face of the earth will shake at my presence. The mountains will topple, the cliffs will fall, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will call for a sword to attack Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will judge him with plague and bloodshed. I will rain down on him his troops and the many peoples who are with him, a torrential downpour, hailstones, fire and brimstone. I will exalt and magnify myself. I will reveal myself before many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord. Oh, that's cool. You will advance in future days. I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may acknowledge me. Okay. The Lord will bring Gog against his land, so that the nations acknowledge him. And God will be magnified through this nation. Okay, so I don't know if you noticed, but like all the pop-ups that keep popping up on the top there, it's a little bit cropped out in the screen share view, but like there's like these pop-ups that keep popping up. That keeps being like, this page is unresponsive. Do you want to wait or kill page? And well, I do not want to close the page because I kind of need it. But it keeps popping up, and then whenever it pops up, I can't scroll. So that's why I keep having to click it away. Anyways, let's keep reading. Chapter 39 of Ezekiel now. Here we go. As for you, son of man, prophesy against Gog. And sometimes it covers the view, but and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Look, I am against you, O Gog, chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and drag you along. I will lead you up from the remotest parts of the north and bring you against the mountains of Israel. I will knock your bow out of your left hand and make your arrows fall from your right hand. You will fall dead on the mountains of Israel, you and all your troops and all the people who are with you. I give you as food to every kind of bird and every wild beast. You will fall dead in the open field, for I have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord. I will send fire on Magog and those who live securely in the coastlands. Then they will know that I am the Lord. I will make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. I will not let my holy name be profaned anymore. Then the nations will know that I am the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. Realize that it is coming and it will be done, declares the sovereign Lord. It is the day I have spoken about. Then those who live in the cities of Israel will go out and use the weapons for kindling, the shields, bows and arrows, war clubs and spears. They will burn them for 7 years. They will not need to take wood from the field or cut down trees from the forests, because they will make fires with the weapons. They will take the loot from those who looted them and seize the plunder of those who plundered them, declares the sovereign Lord. On that day, I will assign Gog a grave in Israel. It will be the valley of those who travel east of the sea. It will block the way of the travelers. There they will bury Gog and all his horde. They will call it the valley of Hamon Gog. For 7 months, Israel will bury them in order to cleanse the land. All the people of the land will bury them. It will be a memorial for them on the day I magnify myself, declares the sovereign Lord. They will designate men to scout continually through the land, burying those who remain on the surface of the ground in order to cleanse it. They will search for 7 full months. When the scouts survey the land and see a human bone, they will place a sign by it until those assigned to burial duty have buried it in the valley of Hamon Gog. A city by the name of Hamonah will also be there. They will cleanse the land. As for you, son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Tell every kind of bird and every wild beast, assemble and come. Gather from all around to my slaughter, that I am going to make for you a great slaughter on the mountains of Israel. You will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of warriors and drink the blood of the princes of the earth, the rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, all of them fattened animals of Bashan. You will eat fat until you are full and drink blood until you are drunk at my slaughter that I have made for you. You will fill up my table with horses and charioteers, with warriors and the soldiers, declares the sovereign Lord. Oh no. Okay. I will display my majesty among the nations. All the nations will witness the judgment I have executed and the power I have exhibited among them. Then the house of Israel will know that I am the Lord their God. From that day forward, the nations will know that the house of Israel went into exile due to their iniquity. For they were unfaithful to me, so I hid my face from them and handed them over to their enemies. All of them died by the sword. According to their uncleanness and rebellion, I have dealt with them, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Now I will restore the fortunes of Jacob, and I will have mercy on the entire house of Israel. I will be zealous for my holy name. They will bear their shame for all their unfaithful acts against me. When they live securely on their land with no one to make them afraid, when I have brought them back from the peoples and gathered them from the countries of their enemies, I will magnify myself among them in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord their God, because I sent them into exile among the nations and then gathered them into their own land. I will not leave any of them in exile any longer. I will no longer hide my face from them when I pour out my spirit on the house of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord. Okay. Gog will be destroyed and the army buried, and God will be exalted. Yeah. God will have mercy on Jacob, or on the house of Israel. and they will bear their shame for their unfaithful acts. But he will regather them and will pour out his spirit on the house of Israel. Ezekiel 40. Oh. I still had speech to text on. Okay, here we go. Vision of the new temple. A lot of this, like, prophetic literature is definitely hard to understand, but it's interesting. It's really interesting to read, but definitely some of it is like kind of tough to understand for sure. Chapter 40. In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, in the 14th year after the city was struck down, on this very day, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me there. By divine visions, he brought me to the land of Israel and placed me on a very high mountain, and on it was a structure like a city to the south. When he brought me there, I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze, with a linen cord and a measuring stick in his hand. He was standing in the gateway. The man said to me, "Son of man, watch closely, listen carefully, and pay attention to everything I show you, for you have been brought here so that I can show it to you. Tell the house of Israel everything you see. I saw a wall all around the outside of the temple. In the man's hand was a measuring stick, 10.5 feet long. He measured the thickness of the wall, 10.5 feet, and its height as 10.5 feet. Then he went to the gate facing east. He climbed its steps and measured the threshold of the gate as 10.5 feet deep. The alcoves were 10.5 feet deep, long and 10.5 feet wide. Between the alcoves were 8.75 feet. The threshold of the gate by the porch of the gate facing inward was 10.5 feet. Then he measured the porch of the gate facing inward as 10.5 feet. He measured the porch of the gate as 14 feet and its jambs as 13.5 feet. The porch of the gate faced inward. There were 3 alcoves on each side of the east gate. The 3 had the same measurement, and the jambs on either side had the same measurement. He measured the width of the entrance of the gateway as 17.5 feet, and the length of the gateway as 22.75 feet. There was a barrier in front of the alcoves, 1.75 feet on either side. The alcoves were 10.5 feet on either side. He measured the gateway from the roof of one alcove to the roof of another, a width of 43.75 feet. From the entrance of the opposite one, he measured the porch at 105 feet high. The gateway went all around to the jamb of the courtyard. From the front of the entrance gate to the porch of the inner gate was 87.5 feet. There were closed windows toward the alcoves and toward their jambs within the gate all around, and likewise for the porches. There were windows all around inside, and on each jamb there were decorative palm trees. If anyone knows what a jamb is, by the way, let me know. I assume it's not when people get together and play some music together, but yeah, I'm curious about what that word means. And then he brought me to the outer court. I saw chambers there and a pavement made for the court. All around 30 chambers faced the pavement. The pavement was beside the gates, corresponding to the length of the gates. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the width from before the lower gate to the front of the exterior of the inner court as 175 feet on the east and on the north. He measured the length and width of the gate of the outer court that faces north. Its alcoves, 3 on each side, and its jambs and porches had the same measurement as the first gate, 87.5 feet long and 43.75 feet wide. Its windows, its porches, and its decorative palm trees had the same measurement as the gate that faced east. 7 steps led up to it, and its porch was in front of them. Opposite the gate on the north and the east gate was the inner court. He measured the distance from the gate to gate at 175 feet. Then he led me toward the south. I saw a gate on the south. He measured its jambs and its porches. They had the same dimensions as the others. There were windows all around it, and its porches, like the windows of the others, 87.5 feet long and 43.75 feet wide. There were 7 steps going up to it. Its porches were in front of them. It had decorative palm trees on its jambs, 1 on either side. The inner court had a gate toward the south. He measured it from gate to gate toward the south at 175 feet. Then he brought me to the inner court by the south gate. He measured the south gate. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches had the same dimensions as the others. And there were windows all around it and its porches. Its length was 87.5 feet, and its width was 43.75 feet. There were porches all around, 43.75 feet long and 8.75 feet wide. Its porches faced the outer court, and decorative palm trees were on its jambs, and its stairway had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side. He measured the gate. It had the same dimensions as the others. Its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches had the same dimensions as the others, and there were windows all around it. And its porches, its length was 87.5 feet, and its width was 43.75 feet. Its porches faced the outer court. It had decorative palm trees on its jambs, and its stairway had 8 steps. Then he brought me to the north gate, and he measured it. It had the same dimensions as the others, its alcoves, its jambs, and its porches. It had windows all around it. Its length was 87.5 feet, and its width 43.75 feet. Its jambs faced the outer court, and it had decorative palm trees on its jambs on either side. And its stairway had 8 steps. There was a chamber with its door by the porch on the gate. There they washed the burnt offering. In the porch on the gate were 2 tables on either side on which to slaughter the burnt offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering. On the outside of the porch, as one goes up at the entrance of the north gate, were 2 tables. And on the other side of the porch of the gate were 2 tables. 4 tables were on each side of the gate, 8 tables on which the sacrifices were to be slaughtered. There were the 4 tables for the burnt offering were of carved stone, 32 inches long, 32 inches wide, and 21 inches high. They would put the instruments that they used to slaughter the burnt offering and the sacrifice on them. There were hooks 3 inches long fastened to the house all around, and on the tables there were hooks 3 inches long fastened to the house all around, and on the tables was the flesh of the offering. Jambs are the interior side of the door frame. That makes sense. Sweet. Thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. All right. On the outside of the inner gate were chambers for the singers of the inner court, one at one side of the north gate facing south, and the other at the other side of the south gate facing north. He said to me, "This chamber that faces south is for the priests who keep charge of the temple, and the chamber that faces north is for the priests who keep charge of the altar. These are the descendants of Zadok, from the descendants of Levi, who may approach the Lord to minister to him." He measured the court as a square, 175 feet long, 175 feet wide. The altar was in front of the temple. Then he brought me to the porch of the temple and measured the jambs of the porch. It was 8¾ feet on either side. The width of the gate was 24½ feet, and the sides were 5¼ feet on each side. The length of the porch was 35 feet, and the width was 19¼ feet. Steps led to it, and there were pillars beside the jambs on either side. Whew. All right, that was very detailed, very descriptive of new temple. That's really cool. That's like super specific and it's a vision, right? Like, yeah, it's a vision of the new temple. Like, that's super cool. Yeah, watch carefully right here. Watch closely, listen carefully rather, and pay attention to everything I show you. Okay, cool. Vision of the new temple with very precise measurements all over. All right. The inner temple. Then he brought me to the outer sanctuary and measured the jambs. The jambs were 10½ feet wide on each side. The width of the entrance was 17½ feet, and the sides of the entrance were 8¾ feet on each side. He measured the length of the outer sanctuary as 70 feet, and its width as 35 feet. Then he went into the inner sanctuary and measured the jambs of the entrance as 3½ feet. The entrance was 10½ feet, and the width of the entrance was 12½ feet. Then he measured its length as 35 feet and its width as 35 feet before the outer sanctuary. He said to me, "This is the most holy place." Man, that's cool that he gets to see that. Then he measured the wall of the temple at 10½ feet and the width of the side chambers as 7 feet all around the temple. The side chambers were in 3 stories, one above the other, 30 in each story. There were offsets in the wall all around to serve as supports for the side chambers, so that the supports were not in the wall of the temple. The side chambers surrounding the temple were wider at each successive story, for the structure surrounding the temple went up story by story all around the temple. For this reason, the width of the temple increased as it went up. And one went up from the lowest story to the highest by the way of the middle story. I saw that the temple had a raised platform all around. The foundations of the side chambers were a full measuring stick, 10½ feet high. The width of the outer wall of the side chambers was 8¾ feet, and the open area between the side chambers of the temple and the chambers of the court was 35 feet in width, all around the temple on every side. There were entrances from the side chambers toward the open area, one entrance toward the north and another entrance toward the south. The width of the open area was 8¾ feet all around. The building that was facing the temple courtyard at the west side was 122½ feet wide. The wall of the building was 8¾ feet thick all around, and its length 157½ feet. Then he measured the temple as 175 feet long, the courtyard of the temple and the building and its walls 175 feet long, and also the width of the front of the temple and the courtyard on the east as 175 feet. Then he measured the length of the building facing the courtyard at the rear of the temple and its galleries on either side as 175 feet. The interior of the outer sanctuary and the porch of the court, as well as the threshold's narrow windows and galleries all around on 3 sides facing the threshold, were paneled with wood all around, from the ground up to the windows. Now the windows were covered, to the space above the entrance to the inner room, and on the outside and on the walls in the inner room, and outside by measurement. It was made with cherubim and decorative palm trees, with a palm tree between each cherub. Each cherub had 2 faces, a human face toward the palm tree on one side and a lion's face toward the palm tree on the other side. They were carved on the whole temple all around, from the ground to the area above the entrance. Cherubim and decorative palm trees were carved on the wall of the outer sanctuary. The doorposts of the outer sanctuary were square in front of the sanctuary. One doorpost looked just like the other. The altar was wood 5¼ feet high, with its length 3½ feet. Its corners, its length, and its walls were of wood. He said to me, "This is the table that is before the Lord, the outer sanctuary and the inner sanctuary. Each had a double door. Each of the doors had 2 leaves, 2 swinging leaves, 2 leaves for one door and 2 leaves for the other. On the doors of the outer sanctuary were carved cherubim and palm trees like those carved on the walls, and there was a canopy of wood on the front of the outside porch. There were narrow windows and decorative palm trees on either side of the side walls of the porch. This is the side chambers of the temple, and the canopies were like." All right. Interesting. Let's take a few notes. Continued vision of the new temple, including the Holy of Holies and the chambers and decorative palm trees and cherubim. All right. Ezekiel 42. Chambers for the temple. Now we'll get really into the chambers. Then he led me to the outer court toward the north and brought me to the chamber that was opposite the courtyard and opposite the building on the north. Its length was 175 feet on the north side and its width 87½ feet, opposite the 35 feet that belonged to the inner court and opposite the pavement that belonged to the outer court. Gallery faced gallery in 3 stories. In front of the chambers was a walkway on the inner side, 17½ feet wide at a distance of 1 3/4 feet, and their entrances were on the north. Now the upper chambers were narrower because the galleries took more space from them than the lower and middle chambers of the building, for they were in 3 stories and had no pillars like the pillars of the courts. Therefore the upper chambers were set back from the ground more than the lower and middle ones. As for the outer wall, by the side of the chambers toward the outer court facing the chambers, it was 87½ feet. For the chambers on the outer court were 87½ feet long, while those facing the temple were 175 feet long. These chambers was a passage on the east side, as one enters from the outer court. At the beginning of the wall of the court toward the south, facing the courtyard and the building, were chambers like those on the north, with a passage in front of them. The chambers that were toward the south were the same length and width as those on the north, and had matching exits and entrances and arrangements. There was an opening at the head of the passage in front of the corresponding wall toward the east when one enters. Then he said to me, the north chambers and the south chambers that face the courtyard are holy chambers, where the priests who approach the Lord will eat the most holy offerings. There they will place the most holy offerings, the grain offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, because the place is holy. When the priests enter, they will not go out from the sanctuary to the outer court without taking off their garments in which they minister, for these are holy. They will put on other garments, then they will go near the places where the people are. Now, when he had finished measuring the interior of the temple, he led me out by the gate that faces east and measured all around. He measured the east side with the measuring stick and as 875 feet by the measuring stick. He measured the north side as 875 feet by the measuring stick. He measured the south side as 875 feet by the measuring stick. He turned to the west side and measured 875 feet by the measuring stick. He measured it on all four sides. It had a wall around it, 875 feet long and 875 feet wide, to separate the holy and common places. All right. This is continued vision of the temple, comma, more chambers, comma, the holy place. I want to say including the holy place. Oh no. Including the holy place, and then okay. Measurements of the sides and the separation of the holy and common places. All right. The glory returns to the temple. This must have been like such an amazing vision for Ezekiel to receive. Like, think about how everything's been destroyed, right? And that's like a great, great tragedy. Like, the whole temple's been looted and destroyed. So to be able to get like a vision where everything is like super specific to where God is revealing exactly like what the temple is going to be like, that must have been so, so cool for Ezekiel. Chapter 43, here we go. Then he brought me to the gate that faced toward the east. I saw the glory of the God of Israel coming from the east. The sound was like that of rushing water, and the earth radiated his glory. It was like the vision I saw when he came to destroy the city. And the vision I saw by the Kebar River, I threw myself face down. The glory of the Lord came into the temple by way of the gate that faces east. Then a wind lifted me up and brought me to the inner court. I watched the glory of the Lord filling the temple. I heard someone speaking to me from the temple while the man was standing beside me. He said to me, "Son of man, this is the place of my throne and the place for the soles of my feet, where I will live among the people of Israel forever. The house of Israel will no longer profane my holy name, neither they nor their kings, by their spiritual prostitution or by the pillars of their kings set up when they die. When they place their threshold by my threshold and their doorpost by my doorpost, with only the wall between me and them, they profaned my holy name by the abominable deeds they committed. So I consumed them in my anger. Now they must put away their spiritual prostitution and the pillars of their kings far from me, and then I will live among them forever. As for you, son of man, describe the temple to the house of Israel. so that they will be ashamed of their sins and measure the pattern. When they are ashamed of all that they have done, make known to them the design of the temple, its pattern, its exits and entrances, and its whole design, all its statutes, its entire design, and all its laws. Write it all down in their sight, so that they may observe its entire design and all its statutes and do them. This is the law of the temple. The entire area on top of the mountain all around will be most holy. Indeed, this is the law of the temple. And these are the measurements of the altar. Its base is 1 3/4 feet high and 1 3/4 feet wide. Its border 9 inches on its edge. This is to be the height of the altar. From the base of the ground to the lower ledge is 3.5 feet, and the width is 1 3/4 feet. And from the smaller ledge to the larger ledge, 7 feet, and the width 1 3/4 feet. And the altar hearth 7 feet, and from the altar hearth 4 horns projecting upward. Now the altar hearth is a perfect square, 21 feet long and 21 feet wide. The ledge is 24.5 feet long and 24.5 feet wide on 4 sides. The border around it is 10.5 inches, and its surrounding base 1 3/4 feet. Its steps faced east. Then he said to me, Son of man, this is what the sovereign Lord says. These are the statues of the altar on the day it is built, to offer up burnt offerings on it and to sprinkle blood on it. You will give a young bull for a sin offering to the Levitical priests who are descended from Zadok, who approach me to minister to me, declares the sovereign Lord. You will take some of its blood and place it on the four horns of the altar, on the 4 corners of the ledge, and on the border all around. You will purify it and make atonement for it. You will also take the bull for the sin offering, and it will be burned in the appointed place in the temple outside the sanctuary. On the 2nd day, you will offer a male goat without blemish for a sin offering. They will purify the altar just as they purified it with the bull. When you have finished purifying it, you will offer an unblemished young bull and an unblemished ram from the flock. You will present them before the Lord, and the priests will scatter salt on them and offer them as a burnt offering to the Lord. For 7 days you will provide every day a goat for a sin offering, a young bull, and a ram from the flock, both without blemish, will be provided. For 7 days they will make atonement for the altar and cleanse it, so they will consecrate it. When the prescribed period is over, on the 8th day, and thereafter the priests will offer up on the altar your burnt offerings and your peace offerings. I will accept you, declares the sovereign Lord. Wow. All right. Seeing the glory of God come into the temple must have been definitely the highlight of the whole vision. That's cool. Ezekiel sees the glory of God coming in from the east to dwell in the temple. Dwell in the temple. Okay. Then there were measurements for the altar and instructions for sacrifices. The whole mountain will be called most holy. All right, the closed gate. Then he brought me back by way of the outer gate of the sanctuary that faces east, but it was shut. The Lord said to me, "This gate will be shut, it will not be opened, and no one will enter by it. For the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered by it, therefore it will remain shut. Only the prince may sit in it to eat a sacrificial meal before the Lord. He will enter by way of the porch of the gate and will go out by the same way." Then he brought me by way of the north gate to the front of the temple. Sorry, where was that gate? The outer gate that faces east, but it was shut. Interesting. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself here. All right, let's just read. As I watched, I noticed the glory of the Lord filling the Lord's temple, and I threw myself face down. The Lord said to me, "Son of man, pay attention, watch closely, and listen carefully to everything I tell you concerning all the statutes of the Lord's house and all its laws. Pay attention to the entrances to the temple with all the exits of the sanctuary. Say to the rebellious, to the house of Israel, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Enough with all your abominable practices, O house of Israel. When you bring foreigners, those uncircumcised in heart and in flesh, into my sanctuary, you desecrate it. Even my house, when you offer my food, the fat of the blood, you have broken my covenant by all your abominable practices. You have not kept charge of my holy things, but you have assigned foreigners to keep charge of my sanctuary for you. This is what the sovereign Lord says. No foreigner who is uncircumcised in heart and flesh among all the foreigners who are among the people of Israel will enter into my sanctuary. But the Levites who went far from me, straying off from me after their idols when Israel went astray, will be responsible for their sin. Yet they will be ministers in my sanctuary, having oversight at the gates of the temple and serving the temple. They will slaughter the burnt offerings and the sacrifices for the people, and they will stand before them to minister to them, because they used to minister to them before their idols and became a sinful obstacle to the house of Israel. Consequently, I have made a vow concerning them, declares the sovereign Lord, that they will be responsible for their sin. They will not come near me to serve me as priest, nor will they come near any of my holy things, the things that are most sacred. They will bear the shame of the abominable deeds they have committed. Yet I will appoint them to keep charge of the temple, all its service, and all that will be done in it. But the Levitical priests, the descendants of Zadok, who kept the charge of my sanctuary, when the people of Israel went astray from me, will approach me to minister to me. They will stand before me to offer the fat of the blood, declares the sovereign Lord. They will enter my sanctuary and approach my table to minister to me. They will keep my charge. When they enter the gates of the inner court, they must wear linen garments. They must not have any wool on them. When they minister in the inner gates of the court and in the temple, linen turbans will be on their heads, and linen undergarments will be around their waists. They must not bind themselves with anything that causes sweat. When they go out to the outer court to the people, they must remove the garments they were ministering in and place them in the holy chambers. They must put on other garments so that they will not transmit holiness to the people with their garments. They must not shave their beards, nor let their hair grow long. They must only trim their heads. No priest may drink wine when he enters the inner court. They must not marry a widow or a divorcee, but they must marry a virgin from the house of Israel, or a widow who is a priest's widow. Moreover, they will teach my people the difference between the holy and the common, and show them how to distinguish between the ceremonially unclean and the clean. In a controversy, they will act as judges. They will judge according to my ordinances. They will keep my laws and my statutes regarding all my appointed festivals, and will observe my Sabbaths. They must not come near a dead person, or they will be defiled. However, for father, mother, son, daughter, brother, or unmarried sister, they may defile themselves. After a priest has become ceremonially clean, he must count off a period of 7 days for him. On the day he enters the sanctuary into the inner court to serve in the sanctuary, he must offer his sin offering, declares the sovereign Lord. This will be their inheritance. I am their inheritance, and you must give them no property in Israel. I am their property. They may eat the grain offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, and every devoted thing in Israel will be theirs. The first of all the firstfruits and all the contributions of any kind will be for the priests. You will also give to the priests the first portion of your dough, so that a blessing may rest on your house. The priests will not eat any bird or animal that has died of a natural death or was torn to pieces by a wild animal. Okay. This is neat. This is very neat. Okay. This is kind of like I don't know. I had the word. I have it on the tip of my tongue now. I had it as I was reading, but it's like a reinstatement of the priesthood, which is interesting because they're in exile. And reinstatement of the priesthood and their duties, and God being their portion. Yeah, really, really interesting. All right, chapter 45. The Lord's portion of the land. When you allot the land as an inheritance, you will offer an allotment to the Lord, a holy portion from the land. The length will be 8 1/4 miles, and the width 3 1/3 miles. This entire area will be holy. Of this area, a square 875 feet by 875 feet will be designated for the sanctuary, with 87.5 feet set aside for its open space round about. From this measured area, you will measure a length of 8 1/4 miles and the width of 3 1/3 miles. It will be the sanctuary of the most holy place. It will be a holy portion of the land. It will be for the priests, the ministers of the sanctuary, who approach the Lord to minister to him. It will be a place for their houses and a holy place for the sanctuary. An area 8 1/4 miles in length and 3 1/3 miles in width will be for the Levites, who minister at the temple, as the place for the cities in which they live in. Alongside the portion set apart as the holy allotment, you will allot for the city an area of 1 2/3 miles wide, 8 1/4 miles long. It will be for the whole house of Israel. For the prince, there will be land on both sides of the holy allotment, and the allotted city on the west side and on the east side will be comparable in length to one of the portions. From the west border to the east border of the land, this will be his property in Israel. My princes will no longer oppress my people, but the land will be allotted to the house of Israel according to their tribes. This is what the sovereign Lord says: Enough, you princes of Israel. Put away violence and destruction, and do what is just and right. Put an end to your your evictions of my people, declares the sovereign Lord. You must use just balances, a just dry measure, an ephah, and a just liquid measure, a bath. The dry and liquid measures will be the same. The bath will contain 1/10 of a homer, and the ephah 1/10 of a homer. The homer will be the standard measure. The shekel will be 20 gerahs. 60 shekels will be a minya for you. This is the offering. You must offer 1/6 of an ephah from a homer of wheat, 1/6 of an ephah from a homer of barley, and as the prescribed portion of the olive oil, 1/10 of a bath from each core, which is 10 baths or a homer, for 10 baths make a homer, and 1 sheep from each flock of 200, from the watered places of Israel, for a grain offering, burnt offering, and peace offering, to make atonement for them, declares the sovereign Lord. All the people of the land will contribute to this offering for the prince of Israel. It will be the duty of the prince to provide the burnt offerings, the grain offering, and the drink offering at festivals on the new moons and Sabbaths, at all the appointed feasts and the house of Israel. He will provide the sin offering, the grain offering, the burnt offering, and the peace offering to make atonement for the house of Israel. This is what the sovereign Lord says. In the first month, on the first day of the month, you must take an unblemished young bull and purify the sanctuary. The priest will take some blood of the will take some of the blood of the sin offering and place it on the doorpost of the temple, on the 4 corners of the ledge of the altar, and on the doorpost of the gate of the inner court. This is what you must do on the 7th day of the month for anyone who sins inadvertently or through ignorance, so you will make atonement for the temple. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, you will celebrate the Passover, for the 7 days of the festival bread made without yeast will be eaten. On that day, the prince will provide for himself and for all the people of the land a bull for a sin offering. And during the 7 days of the feast, he will provide a burnt offering to the Lord, 7 bulls and 7 rams, all without blemish, on each of the 7 days, and a male goat daily for a sin offering. He will provide as a grain offering an ephah for each bull, an ephah for each ram, and a gallon of olive oil for each ephah of grain. In the 7th month, on the 15th day of the month, at the feast, he will make the same provisions for the sin offering, burnt offering, and grain offering, for the olive oil for the 7 days. All right. Let's see. Feasts and festivals and offerings that the priests will offer. Ezekiel 46 is this? Wait, no. Oh, wait, hold on. That was 45? Shoot, I have it in my notes at 46. Where did I go wrong? Oh, whatever. I'll figure it out later. All right. Ezekiel 46 now. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The gate of the inner court that faces east will be closed 6 working days, but on the Sabbath day it will be opened, and on the day of the new moon it will be opened. The prince will enter by way of the porch of the gate from the outside, and will stand by the doorpost of the gate. The priest will provide his burnt offering and his peace offerings, and he will bow down at the threshold of the gate and then go out, but the gate will not be closed until evening. The people of the land will bow down at the entrance of that gate before the Lord on the Sabbaths and on the new moons. The burnt offering and that the prince will offer to the Lord on the Sabbath day will be 6 unblemished lambs and 1 unblemished ram. The grain offering will be an ephah with the ram, and the grain offering with the lambs will be as much as he is able to give, and a gallon of olive oil and an ephah. On the day of the new moon, he will offer an unblemished young bull and 6 lambs and a ram, all without blemish. He will provide a grain offering, an ephah with the bull, and an ephah with the ram, and with the lambs as much as he wishes, and a gallon of olive oil with each ephah of grain. When the prince enters, he will come by way of the porch of the gate, and will go out the same way. When the people of the land come before the Lord at the appointed feasts, whoever enters by way of the north gate to worship will go out by way of the south gate. Whoever enters by way of the south gate will go out by way of the north gate. No one will return by way of the gate they entered, but will go out straight ahead. When they come in, the prince will come in with them, and when they go out, he will go out. At the festivals and at the appointed feasts, the grain offering will be an ephah with the bull, and an ephah with the ram, and with the lambs as much as one is able, and a gallon of olive oil with each ephah of grain. When the prince provides a freewill offering, a burnt offering, or a peace offering as a voluntary offering to the Lord, the gate facing east will be opened for him, and he will provide his burnt offering and his peace offering just as he did on the Sabbath. Then he will go out, and the gate will be closed after he goes out. You will provide a lamb, a year old without blemish, for a burnt offering daily to the Lord. Morning by morning he will provide it, and you will provide a grain offering with it, morning by morning, 1/6 of an ephah, and 1/3 of a gallon of olive oil to moisten the choice flour, as a grain offering to the Lord. This is a perpetual statute. Thus they will provide the lamb, the grain offering, and the olive oil morning by morning as a perpetual burnt offering. This is what the sovereign Lord says: if the prince should give a gift to one of his sons as an inheritance, it will belong to his sons. It is their property by inheritance. But if he gives a gift from his inheritance to one of his servants, it will be his until the year of liberty. Then it will revert to the prince. His inheritance will only remain with his sons. The prince will not take away any of the people's inheritance by oppressively removing them from their property. He will give his sons an inheritance from his own possessions, so that my people will not be scattered, each from his own property. Then he brought me through the entrance, which was at the side of the gate, into the holy chambers for the priests, which faced north. There I saw a place at the extreme westward, and he said to me, "This is the place where the priests will boil the guilt offering and the sin offering, and where they will bake the grain offering, so that they do not bring them out to the outer court to transmit holiness to the people." Then he brought me out to the outer court and led me past the 4 corners of the court, and I noticed that in every corner of the court there was a court. In the 4 corners of the court were small courts, 70 feet in length and 52.5 feet in width. The 4 were all the same size. There was a row of masonry around each of the 4 courts, and places for boiling offerings were made under the rows all around. Then he said to me, "These are the houses for boiling, where the ministers of the temple boil the sacrifices of the people." All right. So there is a gate that is to be closed for 6 days and only opened on the Sabbath. People are to exit by a gate opposite from the gate they entered in by. All right, on to Ezekiel 47, This is our last chapter of the morning, and it's actually the second last chapter of Ezekiel. So we'll be finishing Ezekiel first thing in the morning tomorrow morning. Here we go, though. Ezekiel 47. Then he brought me back to the entrance of the temple. I noticed that water was flowing from under the threshold of the temple toward the east. The temple faced east. The water was flowing down from under the right side of the temple, from south of the altar. He led me out by way of the north gate and brought me around the outside of the outer gate that faces toward the east. I noticed that the water was trickling out from the south side. When the man went out toward the east with a measuring line in his hand, he measured 1,750 feet, and then he led me through water, which was ankle deep. Again, he measured 1,750 feet and led me through the water, which was now knee deep. Once more, he measured 1,750 feet and led me through the water, which was waist deep. Again, he measured 1,750 feet, and it was a river I could not cross, for the water had risen. It was deep enough to swim in, a river that could not be crossed. He said to me, "Son of man, have you seen this?" Then he led me back to the bank of the river. When I had returned, I noticed a vast number of trees on the banks of the river on both sides. He said to me, "These waters go out toward the eastern region and flow down into the Rift Valley. When they enter the Dead Sea, where the sea is stagnant, the waters become fresh. Every living creature that swarms where the river flows will live. There will be many fish, for these waters flow there. It will become fresh, and everything will live where the river flows. Fishermen will stand beside it, from En-gedi to En-Eglaim. They will spread nets. They will catch many kinds of fish, like the fish of the great sea. But its swamps and its marshes will not become fresh. They will remain salty. On both sides of the river's banks, every kind of tree will grow for food. Their leaves will not wither, nor will their fruit fail, but they will bear fruit every month, because their water source flows from the sanctuary. For their fruit will be for food, and their leaves for healing. This is what the sovereign Lord says. Here are the borders you will observe as you allot the land to the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph will have 2 portions. You must divide it equally, just as I vowed to give it to your forefathers. This land will be assigned as your inheritance. This will be the border of the land on the north side, from the great sea by way of Hethlon to the entrance of Zedad, Hamath, Berothah, Sibrim, which is between the border of Damascus and the border of Hamath, as far as Hazar Hatikon, which is on the border of Horon. The border will run from the sea to Hazar Enan at the border of Damascus, and on the north is the border of Hamath. This is the north side. On the east side, between Horon and Damascus, and between Gilead and the land of Israel, will be the Jordan. You will measure from the border of the eastern sea. This is the east side. On the south side, it will run from Tamar to the waters of Meribah, Kadesh, the river, to the great sea. This is the south side. On the west side, the great sea will be the boundary, to a point opposite Lebo Hamath. This is the west side. This is how you will divide this land for yourselves among the tribes of Israel. You must allot it as an inheritance among yourselves, and for the resident foreigners who live among you. You have fathered sons among you. You must treat them as native born among the people of Israel. They will be allotted an inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. In whatever tribe the resident foreigner lives, there you will give him his inheritance, declares the sovereign Lord. All right. That is the conclusion of our reading this morning. There were a lot of details, like very, very specific details in this reading, which was very interesting. It was definitely like a lot to try to picture and try to wrap your mind around. I don't know if you were able to. I was not necessarily able to wrap my mind around it because it felt like too much to keep track of. Also, I kind of need the metric system to be able to understand it. So it was like a little confusing for me. I tried a little bit to maybe do a conversion at one point, and I was like, no, this is not gonna work, like in my head. But essentially, like I think it was here, like when it was like, yeah. Anyways, definitely a lot of details, but really cool, really specific details about like restoring the temple, restoring the land. There's a very restorative element to the whole reading that we've done this morning. And it's been really fascinating because it's like the land gets restored, the temple gets restored, the Levitical and priestly duties are reinstated. And it's kind of like, okay, things have gone really, really bad, but and now they've gone into exile, but now they're going to be, when they will be brought back from exile, it's like, let's start over kind of thing. And like a lot of things are very, very similar to the first entrance into the land. And so anyways, I think that's really interesting. It shows the great restorative heart of our God, who wants to, and out of his grace works to restore things that are so broken and so corrupt and so opposed to him. Yet he continually tries to, and continually, I'm not going to say tries, he continually does. He achieves what he does. He continually achieves this restoration. And we are in the process of this restoration right now as we await the one day full restoration. So anyways, neat, very cool reading this morning. I hope that it helped you. I hope this was interesting to you and helped you learn and grow. Let's pray, and then that'll conclude our morning reading today. Lord God, thank you so much for this day. Thank you that you are the restorative God, the redemptive God, the one who didn't leave his creation abandoned in our wickedness. You didn't leave us in our rejection. You didn't leave us in our corruption. But Lord, you made a way for us to be redeemed, for us to be restored. Lord, I thank you so much for that, because the insane amount of love that you have for us and care for your creation, that you didn't just scrap it all and say, well, failed experiment, whatever, is kind of mind-blowing to me. Lord, your patience is astounding and beautiful. Thank you, Lord, for not abandoning humanity. Thank you for not abandoning your creation. Even though we are so rebellious, even though we are by nature opposed to you, Lord, I thank you that you made a way. Lord, thank you as we await our eternal residence in you, our eternal destiny, Lord. Lord, when we will see that full beauty, Lord, I pray that you would strengthen us now and here and give us joy in this time, and and hearts that are excited and anticipating what's ahead, while also hearts that are present in what you are doing in and through us here in our neighborhoods, here where we live. Lord, may your kingdom come. May your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I pray in your marvelous name, Yeshua. Amen. I hope you'll have an absolutely wonderful and blessed day. And again, first thing in the morning, we're reading the last chapter of Ezekiel. I hope you're excited, because that's going to be right away. Ezekiel chapter 48. So see you tomorrow. God bless you and shalom. Ciao.